Good day, class. I am Dominique Daniels Clark, and today I'm here with my first video discussion pertaining to dissertation research. So, what are the goals of this particular video? Number one, I want to share with you my personal experience exploring the ProQuest dissertation and thesis global database. It was amazing, in my opinion. It was so many things that I could choose from, and I would definitely be using this moving forward. I also want to share with you my anticipated field of study, as well as my process that I intend to use to conduct my research. I also wanted not only to give an analysis and my experience of the database, but I also wanted to share with you a couple of dissertations that I found that were based on my preferred field of study. So now the big question is, what is my field of study? Christianity's role in African American literacy and education in America. I want to talk about this from a historical point. We know that education of African Americans or Africans in this country is directly correlated with Christianity. It is the idea of conversion that was the foundation of the avocation of slaves being able to read during the early times. Early Presbyterians like Samuel Davis appealed to Virginian lawmakers. Early groups like the Quakers also advocated support of African American literacy. Post-Civil War is going to be the Methodist and the Baptist denominations that are going to take over and kind of foster education amongst the blacks. They're going to do this whether by starting schools in their basements or establishing HBCUs or simply providing funding to the African American community to create their own institutions. Also, during the Civil Rights Movement, Christianity had a big impact in and contributed really to the desegregation of school. As you know, the Civil Rights Movement was organized at Black churches. Therefore, leaders of the African American community, especially pastors and religious leaders being the most influential, played a critical role in the cohesiveness of this movement. Due to their resilience, African Americans were able to attain the ability to go to any institution from a primary to a collegiate level. Now, in today, churches and religious institutes, some maybe more than others, tend to nurse education among their congregation. So does religion still play an important underlying role in Black academia like it always has historically? That's what I intend to find out. Now, we know that methodology is the systematic method to resolve or research a problem. And you do this by gathering data as well as using various techniques. What am I trying to accomplish through my research? What role did Christianity play in African American literacy and education historically? And does Christianity today still influence Black academic achievement? What techniques do I plan to use to help me gather this data so I can give an adequate conclusion? Number one, case studies. I tend to use case studies of a sample group of students as well as numerous churches. I also tend to use or project that I will use surveys that will collect data from various individuals that will help me gain information as well as insight on how African Americans experience life at school, at church, and at home. I'll also take it upon myself to conduct some questionnaires that will ultimately reveal the attitudes and the attributes and the actions of individuals in the African community surrounding religious as well as educational philosophies. What do I want to prove ultimately? That African Americans who are religious, especially those who are devout churchgoers or those who attend religious activities on a regular basis, tend to perform better academically as well as in a behavioral sense. 3 sources I gathered off of ProQuest. 2 of them are dealing with the Presbyterians, because during the early time, the Presbyterians really kind of got the ball rolling, whether it was Samuel Davis in Virginia, as I talked about before, or the Presbyterians down in South Carolina. Salvation, Black or White, Presbyterian Rationale, and Protestant Support for Religious Instruction of Slaves in South Carolina by Susan E. Ramey. This is going to examine and explain the logic behind these South Carolina Presbyterians. She also attempts to explain how Presbyterians fostered Black religion education through a biblical sense. She emphasized how Presbyterians not only felt concerned about the souls of their slaves, but also the souls of their masters as well. She attempts to do a breakdown of the very, very complex issue of salvation in a slave society during the antebellum period for all Christians, not racially based. And she attempts to follow the Presbyterians from the late 1700s all the way to the Reconstruction period. Source 2 is going to be Hunger and Thirsting for Education. Education, Presbyterians and African Americans in the South from 1880 to 1920. And once again, this particular source also deals with Presbyterians and African Americans. This particular thesis is going to investigate the relationship of the white-dominated Presbyterian Church as well as African Americans from 1880 to 1920. It's going to explore the motivations, the philosophies, and the strategies of the Presbyterian Church of the United States of America in ways that they use education to achieve their goals. It's also going to elaborate that I took interest in how they operated colleges as well as seminars to support the development and the education of Black professional teachers as well as ministers. Last but not least, Thomas Sowell's Patterns of Black Excellence. In this, Sowell is going to view the historical advancements of Blacks in America as a laboratory study of human achievement. He concludes that it is amazing just how African Americans were able to develop from the depths of slavery and gain skills, personal discipline, human ideas, and complex knowledge and values that were required for us to assimilate into modern society. He also concludes and argues that a main reason of this advancement has something to do with the educational advancement of African Americans. He is going to provide us with studies of 6 schools. Some were good, some were not, and he's going to determine that African American schools and student performance transcends beyond the classroom. In fact, factors that affect their performance includes intangibles like the atmosphere overall and the school and community relations. Thank you for watching my video, and I hope you enjoyed. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.